That you're here this morning. We're finishing a series this morning on the Sermon on the Mount. And if you know anything about the Sermon on the Mount, these are very, very important words of Jesus. It's the closest thing to a manifesto that we have from Jesus as he lays out his teachings. And what he's doing is he's kind of correcting the false righteousness, like the fake righteousness of the religious leaders of the Jewish people. And he's showing us what it looks like to be truly walking with God. And so we're going to be in chapter 7 of Matthew. And what he's going to do is kind of draw the whole thing to a close. So we're going to be a little bit ambitious today. We're going to take the 2 last weeks and kind of push them together into one message because we got frozen out one Sunday. We kind of missed a week, but that's all right. We're going to catch up this morning. And what Jesus is going to do is he's going to put a fork in the road for us. He's going to bring us to a this or that moment, a this or that decision for us. And I don't know if you guys have ever played the game this or that. Just raise your hand if you've ever played the game this or that. If you're a teacher, you've probably played it. If you're a student, you've probably played it. This is a game that teachers do with students a lot of times, or youth groups, and it's a get-to-know-you kind of a game. And here's the thing about the game is you're going to get an or question, this or that, and then you have to choose one. Okay, you can't choose both. There's no third option. It's like one or the other, and then you got to kind of defend your choice. So I'm going to give you just a couple options here. Here's the first one: summer or winter. Yeah? So, summer. Some of you are like, I want to be 105 degrees in Houston, Texas, and humid. I want my glasses fogging over every time I get out of the car, right? And some of you are like, no, give me like February cold, like right now. This is perfect. I want a little fire. I want a little blanket. That's you, okay? Summer or winter. Okay, here's the second one: cats or dogs. Now, this is divisive. I know this is divisive, but I heard a lot of dogs out there. Do we have any cat people? Just someone loud and proud. Yes, all right. Way to go, cat people. You are few. Yeah. You are few, but you are precious to the Lord, okay? Here's another big one: call or text. Call or text. Oh, okay. I'm like, please don't ever call me about anything for any reason. You don't even have to text me. Just leave me alone, okay? But I'll take a text message. Okay, this could get a little divisive here. Number 4, bath or shower. Oh, some of you are like, no, give me a bathtub in about 45 minutes and I'm in good shape, right? Some of you you're hardcore bathers, but some of you are showers. But this might be the most divisive of all. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there. Number 5, Apple or PC? Mac. All right, here we go. Precious to the Lord. Again, the Mac people, precious to the Lord. Some of you are like, Mac's trying to take over our world. Give me a PC. I know, okay. This or that kinds of questions where we get to know one another, like, what, if you had to choose, what would you choose? And that word or is a difficult word for us because we live in a culture that values options, right? We value choice. We want to have multiple choices out there, but Jesus does not give us multiple choices. He gives us 2. Right? He gives us life and he gives us destruction. He lays out for us these 2 things, and we're going to see him do this over and over in each part of this passage. He's going to give us 2 options, and he's going to lead us to make one choice about those 2 options. And so as we look at these words, these are serious words. These are life and death words. These are eternal salvation words. These are what my Bible calls entering the kingdom kinds of words. This or that. I want to start in verse 13 of Matthew chapter 7. Here's what he says: enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who go through it. How narrow is the gate and difficult the road that leads to life, and few find it. Jesus narrows our options to this or that kind of gate. It's not 3 options. It's not like, and behind door number 3. No, it's 2. The first one he talks about, if you just look at the words that he uses, he says that it's wide and the road is broad. We live in Houston. We have lots of massive highways. I mean, that's the picture in my mind. This massive highway. It is lots and lots of people can get down this road. It is wide. It is broad. And there are many upon that road. Many are on that road. But he says to us, look, if he could put the fork in the road with an arrow, it says that's leading towards destruction. And there's the second gate. And here's the words that he uses to describe it. It is narrow. And that word narrow, it's like being pressed, almost like they would press grapes together to make wine. It's a pressing, it's compressed, like squeezing something, right? It's a narrow, you're going to have to squeeze through this gate. He says that it's difficult. He says that few find this gate. But if you, again, put the fork in the road with the sign, he said, no, life is there. Life is there. And these words, they challenge the pluralism that we have in our culture. See, we live in a Christian culture. You might even say a post-Christian culture. And one of the values that emerges from our faith, as you look back on the history of Protestant Christianity that sort of formed our nation, is that we believe in freedom of conscience. And the reason why is that our Bible tells us that we are to be witnesses, that we're to tell people about what Jesus has done, but we should never, ever, ever coerce anyone to make any sort of decision about their faith. That God acts upon the heart of a person directly. The Spirit of God moves in a person in such a way that as we share, that He's working on them and they respond freely to God's inner working as we share about Him. And what emerged in that is this freedom of conscience. In the midst of that, lots of people can come into a place like that, into Western nations that were formed by Christianity, and they can worship all kinds of things freely. And what happens in that environment is that we can begin to think that we're all going up the same mountain just from different angles. Like the Buddhists are going to go up from this angle, right? And you know, Islam is going to go up from this angle, and the Hindus, they come up from the other side over there. But we Christians, we come up the Jesus way. And here's the reality, is the Lord Jesus does not allow for that type of mentality in our minds if we're going to be true to His word. So this idea of many paths up the same mountain is actually a false idea. There's 2 gates. And the gate is so narrow that there's only one name, according to the book of Acts, as they were sharing about the salvation of Jesus. It said, there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to people by which we must be saved. And that name is the name of Jesus. That's how narrow the gate is. There is only one way into life. It is through Jesus Christ. He is the narrow gate. I was thinking of this, I'd heard about this. In Japan, they have these kind of traditional tea rooms, and they have a doorway, and I'm going to try to say this. It's a Najiraguchi is the name of the doorway. This developed like in the 1500s, and what it was like it's like a small, low door, and you would have to kind of crawl through it. You know, you'd have to get down on your hands and knees. And the reason why they did this is that it required everyone, regardless of social status, to enter lowly on their hands and knees. And it symbolized equality in leaving worldly rank and pride behind. And it was kind of compact, and the samurai who would have these long swords, they could not make it through the opening with the sword. So it was like a place of peace. It's like there was only one way to come in, no matter who you were, no matter how, how you ranked in society. We all come in the same way. And it was this tiny little narrow gate. And that's a picture of the gospel. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you have or don't have. It doesn't matter, your accolades or your failures. Like, we all come through this narrow gate, and the gate is Jesus. So he narrows it down to this or that gate. Here's where he goes on in verse 15. Just read this with me. He says, "Be on your guard against false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravaging wolves. You'll recognize them by their fruit. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? In the same way, every good tree produces good fruit, but a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit. Neither can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that doesn't produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So you'll recognize them by their fruit." So we start with two gates, the wide gate and the narrow gate. But now Jesus, he begins to narrow our options to this or that kind of spiritual leadership. That word false prophet, if you look at the original language, it's pseudo-prophets. Pseudo-prophets. Fake. False. They pretend to foretell, like they've got some message from God. They're a religious imposter. They claim to have the way, to have the revelation, to have the insight, to lead the people away. But he says, no. They look like they're sheep. They look like they're one of you, but in reality, they are wolves. They're wolves. He says that they are ravaging. And that word, as you look at it, it means to extort something, to rob. It's got a sense of greed or a love of money. It's like a type of leader in which Jesus is not enough for them. And so they come and they want to take something from God's people. They want to deceive them in some way to get something out of them for themselves. And he warns us about leaders that would lead us astray. And I'll just say that for someone like me who has a calling to spiritual leadership, like these are serious words for me, or for any person who's called into spiritual leadership. And if I or any person in this pulpit ever turns away from the truth of God's word, you should, as he said, be on guard. You should leave immediately. Jesus is concerned about his disciples, and he doesn't want anyone preying on his people, but we all know that this happens. I mean, just look at our world. I mean, how many names of spiritual leaders could we put on the list of fallen over the last decade? I mean, names that we would be happy to associate ourselves with 10 years ago. Now we're just like, yeah, let's not talk about him or her. Because something has come out. And in some way, Jesus was not enough for them. And they began to prey on the people of God. And so this is real for us. This is present. This is a present danger. And he says to us, look, you will know them by their fruit. Now that's interesting because, fruit is not an immediate thing, right? The danger of our day is that a charismatic person with a great personality who speaks very boldly can quickly rise to notoriety in the Christian world. And they can say all the right stuff, and they can look really great, and you can be moved when they're talking, but just wait like 10 years and say, what did his staff think about him or her? What's the culture that they created around them? And then you start hearing the stories, right? And fruit is like that. It takes time to come out. It's a word for all of us because what kind of fruit are we creating? And he says this about that they will be thrown into the fire. Wow. Those are hard words. Those are like scary words of Jesus. So who do you want leading you? What kind of leader do you want to be? He leads us to this or that kind of spiritual leadership. The third thing here, it starts in verse 21. And I'll be honest with you, I think these words are even scarier than what we just read. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many, again, we saw that word before, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, drive out demons in your name, and do many miracles in your name? Then I will announce to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you law breakers. These words should scare us. Because what Jesus is saying is that there are people who say, Lord, Lord, and anytime there's a double like that, when Jesus says truly, truly, or Lord, Lord, it's an emphasis that he's placing as if there's an earnestness. They're saying, Lord, Lord. And then it says, not, did we go to church, but no, they were doing mighty wonders. They were prophesying, they were doing miracles, driving out demons. I mean, these are people that we would say, like, these are uber Christians. But in some way, there's this relational thing that was missing, like that young man said on the video. It's to know Jesus, or to know him, to enter into relationship with him. And he says this about them. He uses this word lawbreaker, lawbreakers. That means workers of iniquity, workers of unrighteousness. It's like they were doing all the stuff, but inside they're still working at unrighteousness. They're working at law breaking. They're transgressing God's ways. In Jesus, what he does is he narrows our options to this or that kind of disciple. This or that kind of disciple. Now, here's why I think this is important for us, because we live in the Bible Belt. We live in the South. And I could walk up to lots of people on the street and ask, are you a Christian? And they would probably say, yeah, I'm a Christian. But that could have 1,000 different meanings, right? That could mean I'm not Buddhist, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Hindu, I'm Christian. That could mean my family is Lutheran or Catholic or whatever. Like I was baptized as a baby. It could mean a lot of different things. And there could be people who are Christian, but they're sleeping around, they're getting drunk, they're valuing all the stuff of the world like everyone else. They're worried about all the same things as everybody else. And like there's something missing inside of them. But they're Christian. And so for each one of us, we should consider seriously what does it mean for Jesus when he says to be this or that kind of disciple. And here's what he says. It's those who do the will of my Father. To do his will. What's that mean for us? James 1:22 says, be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Meaning that we could just be people who just, yeah, like that's good. I agree with that. Oh, I love that Bible verse. Oh, I love that post on Facebook of that verse, of that guy. I love that. And yet we could hear it, but never do it and deceive ourselves into thinking like, I'm a Christian. You see, the religious can do lots of things in the name of Christ or the name of Christianity. The irreligious, the lawbreakers, they can do lots of things that have nothing to do with Christianity. And neither of them are saved. But it's only those, going back to the very beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, the very first week that you probably don't remember, where he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And these are people that have recognized like they cannot save themselves. They can't even fix themselves. They can't make themselves good enough for God. Like they've been broken in a sense before God. They've been humbled to know no, I desperately need Jesus. And it's to them that the kingdom of heaven belongs. They've come to know Jesus, to be known by him. Let's finish out verse 24. Therefore, in light of what we just read, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell, the rivers rose, and the winds blew and pounded that house, yet it didn't collapse because its foundation was on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the rivers rose, the winds blew and pounded that house, and it collapsed. It collapsed with a great crash. Here we see Jesus. He's narrowing our options down to this or that kind of decision. It's the famous word picture of Jesus. The house built on rock, the house built on sand. Again, there's not also a house built in the woods or a house built in a tree. It's like, no, these are your options. Rock, sand. He says this, the distinguishing factor about how we build is that one person hears the words and acts on them, puts them into practice. The second type of person hears the words and does not do them. He does not put them into practice. He does not respond to these words of Jesus. And I just want you to notice that both houses have rains falling and rivers rising and winds blowing. Like both houses are tested. Both are tested. But only one of them stands. You know, life will absolutely test us. Every single one of us will walk through things in our life that will be really hard. And we'll be like, God, like, really? Where are you right now? And how could you let that happen to us? Why would you take us there? Why would you lead us over to this place? Or why would you let that happen to my family? Why would you do this, God? Like the rivers will rise, the winds will blow, and what matters is what are you built on at the end of this thing? Right? And if that doesn't reveal anything about us, every single one of us will ultimately stand before the throne of God. When we exit this life, we enter into eternity, we will all stand before the throne of God, and there will be a testing, a proving. What did we build our lives upon? And again, Jesus is not being mean. He sees where this is going. And he just wants to say, like, life is here. Destruction is here, and there's no third way. What will you do? What will you decide? One of the greatest earthly pictures that we have of this or that, I think, is a wedding. You know, it's a beautiful day, this ceremony that's been prepared, a bride and a groom. And I'll never forget that feeling whenever I was in the kind of this little side room of the church and I was about to walk down the aisle to marry Casey. And I remember that feeling of just like, my pastor was there, all my friends were around me, and I remember my pastor stood up, kind of like, all right, guys, time to go. And as soon as he did that, I was just like, butterflies, like, oh my gosh. Here we go, walking down the aisle, you know, there's all these people out there to watch you, which is like already kind of crazy. And then you see her, I saw her come down the aisle. It's like, wow, It was a this or that moment. It leads to an I do. Like of all the women in the world, 8 billion people, about half of them are women, so 4 billion women in the world. Of all of them, I choose you. Right? I choose you. I'm closing off all the other options that are out there, and I'm making a decision. It's you. You're the one that I'm covenanting before God with in marriage. And anyone who's ever been married will tell you, your marriage will be tested. Hello? That covenant will be tested. The waters will rise, the winds will blow. The decision will be tested. There will be times where you might be tempted to quit or to look for greener pastures somewhere else. But life and flourishing, like deep love, deep intimacy, like the real stuff, comes on the other side of the testing. Does that make sense what I'm saying? The flourishing. But here's the thing. It takes two people, doesn't it? It takes two people committed, covenanted together to make that a reality. And I was thinking about this or that moment is just picture Jesus like a groom. And he sees you. And here's the thing about you, is you've betrayed him multiple times. You've hurt him multiple times. You've been a little bit flighty and unfaithful. You've flirted with some other things along the way. And you're not the picture of the perfect bride. Hello? Just like me. We're sinful people. We're broken. We've transgressed him so many times. And yet, he looks at you and he's like, I choose you. I will, in fact, to the degree that I will cover you, I will cover all of your past. I will cover all of the betrayal, all the mistakes, all the ways that you flirted or you've been adulterous towards. I will cover that with my own body and blood. I will cover you. I choose you. I choose you. But will you choose me? Will you cut off every other option, every other idol, every other possibility, every other way of all the things out there that you could pursue? Would you be willing to cut that off and say, no, I choose you too? And the miracle of miracles is that he would look at us and he would choose us. Amen? Like, that's astounding. That's grace. That's mercy. And Jesus has already chosen, and he's calling us to our decision. Life or destruction. Me or hell. What will it be? Jesus chose difficulty. He chose the cross. He was not a false prophet seeking to extort anyone. Rather, he emptied himself of every divine privilege he had. He humbled himself. He obeyed completely. He cried out in the garden, not my will, but yours be done. He was tempted. He was tested in every way, just as we are, and yet he was without sin. He defeated death and the grave at the cross. As one who has gone before us, he knows the terrain. He knows what it's like for us, and he stands there at the fork in the road, and at the fork in the road, there is a cross. And it's the place where we choose him. And here's the call of the Sermon on the Mount. Here's what Jesus is wanting for us. Choose him. Choose Jesus. Choose to follow him. So if you've never done that before, this is your day. This is your day. Choose Jesus.